people would just randomly reach out to you and say, hey, how can I get on this platform? Or, hey, how can I work with your product? Hey, how can I have myself some advertisers? And these things happened actually a lot, especially from the supply side. So it's a marketplace, therefore you always have, it's a double-sided marketplace, supply and demand. And supply, people were just hungry. They would reach out and say, hey, we want to make money. We want to make money. So pretty clear. So that was half of a validation. Okay, we understand that. But the other half of the validation was, well, buyers, would they be interested in doing that? And that part, however, took much longer to validate and was a bit of a manual process, right? Obviously, the demand side of any marketplace, and for people who are listening and are planning to build marketplaces, one of the biggest indicators of a future marketplace success would be that the demand outgrows the supply rather than the other way around. So if you have 100 podcasters and you only have one advertiser, well, that's not a great sign. It's better if you have 100 people actually wanting to spend their money and telling you, shut up and take my money, and you only have 50. That indicates that you are onto something for those who are listening. In our case, I wouldn't say that this was the case. First of all, because you definitely, as a startup, need to make yourself known, and marketing, content marketing, advertising, just networking, and so on. All of these things remain applicable, like in any other business, but also because this industry is relatively, the podcasting industry was, and I would imagine still kind of is to some extent, a bit archaic. They still play by the old rules of when the podcasting was born, all right? And therefore, what they do is they will conglomerate into the so-called podcast networks, and that would lubricate the process. In these podcast networks, always the biggest or a few biggest podcasts would generally be acting as drivers, and all those who follow them would benefit from a little bit of that sunshine from them as well. But, people who would discover the podcast network through these much more niche podcasts would then be also presented with a full catalog. So essentially, it's a win-win-win situation for the listener, for the podcaster, for the podcast network, and also for the advertiser as well, because the advertiser doesn't want to deal with 100 separate episodes in 200 separate podcasts. They want one invoice where everything is there, and they want some reporting, and there you go. Now, all of that is still very archaic. It's still Excel driven. It is still like, don't expect to go there and communicate with a platform with some sort of a generative AI that will tell you, okay, this, and this, and here's the report.